One season ago, a champion was decided amongst the 5 that had made it to this very place. This time, though, it brings us that much closer to the run for the 2022 title and everything that'll come forward with the playoffs later this season. One race down in our 3-race intermediate stretch with the second on the way. We're from the virtual Atlanta Motor Speedway. We welcome you to round 14 in season 4 of the 4 Wide Racing Cup Series. And of course, as we bring you our coverage live on MaxSpeedTV. Always happy to have you once again joining us for another Wednesday night of Next Gen Racing. We're alongside Francisco Bacalhau atop the broadcast booth. My name is Kenneth Bueno. And Francisco last week showed us just how crazy the 1.5 milers can get, especially when you couple that type of track with an abrasive surface. And this time around, it is practically no different. The place they caught Hot Atlanta, which usually brings the best out of the wheelmen and usually shows us who's better at skill, both on the long run and just overall.
Very happy to be here from Georgia, Kenneth. And what we saw last week was really good and very encouraging out of the mile. Able to go towards the wall. We saw guys running the bottom, and we also saw a lot of tire wear. We're able to go to the front, guys that had to save tires, different strategies to how the race performs. So I think today we're going to see the exact same thing, considering these tracks are very similar. Obviously, their shapes are just a little bit different. Chicagoland being a D-shaped oval, and us at the quad oval here at Atlanta, but I don't see how these races will be too different from each other, so let's hope that these drivers are able to give us that good show again.
Atlanta Motor Speedway, of course, similarly shaped to the likes of Charlotte Motor Speedway, to Texas Motor Speedway, but don't let that fool you. This is a very different track. Opened back in 1960, it's a 1.54 mile, 2.4 kilometer oval, of course, 4 turns, 24 degrees of banking in this configuration. Of course, we still do not have the new 2022 Atlanta Motor Speedway, which is more like a super speedway, 28 degrees in the corners on that respective category, but we've got the old and reliable Atlanta Motor Speedway that was opened back all the way in the 1990s, mid-1990s, when they reconfigured this track shortly after a championship holding venue in the early 90s, most obviously known Alan Kawicki going to the championship back in 1992. So this is the very tough, the very brash, the very old Atlanta Motor Speedway, so no doubt this track has a lot of personality and it is not afraid to show it. But there are a lot of other tracks with personality that we're going to see over the course of the season. Francisco, though, the biggest thing to know is that we've got 7 different winners and we only have just about 4 races, 5 including this one tonight, before we end up deducing our field to just the final double digits amount of drivers that are going to be fighting for this 2022 season. So undoubtedly so, if you're a driver looking to point your way in, or if you're someone just kind of hanging on the ropes, you're going to need to make a statement sooner than later, because you only have a couple of chances left. It's not a big buffer between yourself and playoff eligibility.
Yeah, now it's getting close to that crunch time where guys need the tracks that they need to perform at, performances they need to have in playoffs, and better their chances of getting up there in the standings so that they can make their job easier come playoff time. We have obviously a couple mile and a halves in Homestead Miami Speedway next week. We go to Daytona for the Super Speed, a wild card. Watkins Glen, the final road course on the schedule, and of course the Kansas Speedway, a mile and a half to end the regular season. But if you look at that playoff schedule, you have half the schedule, almost the whole schedule for that matter, intermediate-esque racetracks, Rockingham being the shortest track on that schedule, but it drives like an intermediate with the big banking that it has there. You have speeds of an intermediate racetrack despite being just a little bit over a mile in length. And of course, the super speedway at Talladega. So that schedule, Kenneth, it is going to require a lot of skill and a lot of patience at tracks that drive not too different from each other. So guys that perform well here, like we talked about last week, guys that perform well at these mile and a halves, these intermediates, they have to perform to the best of their abilities and keep that consistency through each of these races, because that sort of performance here is going to be what we use as a basis and what drivers will use as a basis for that championship run.
It's going to be a huge benchmark, of course, by the time we get to playoff running, and how that's really going to affect the likes of drivers and whether they're going to be a little more conservative here, whether they're going to be a little more aggressive and more dangerous. We'll just have to find out, as right now the drivers have ended their qualifying session. They're lined up behind the iRacing official pace car, which means it is our time to take you through your starting grid, see exactly where every driver and your favorite driver will be lining up here tonight for this Atlanta Motor Speedway race in round 14 of the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series in 2022. Eric Schaefer in the 22 lines up pole with a 31.249. He'll be the first car to see the green flag, not on the grid right now, but he'll pop in just a couple of moments. Curtis Kelly with a solid qualifying effort to be alongside him in that first row.
Row 2 features Craig Lownslugger, who's been knocking consistently to end that winless streak, with Adam Alishire in that 4th position, a good qualifying.
We'll look back to row number 3, Championship 5 competitor from last season here at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Brandon Banks puts up a solid qualifying effort for P5, and Lance Hill in the 38 will be alongside him in P6.
Nicholas Vizuzzi will be in that P7. The winner of yesterday's race is going to be starting in P8.
We'll look to row number 5, the final ones in the top 10. Lawson Peel was at Victory Lane last time he went here to Atlanta Motor Speedway. We'll see if he can do it all over again with the next-gen cars. He starts 9th, Christopher Bishop alongside him to cap off the top 10.
Kevin D'Elia is going to just miss position in P11, and Kyle Benson going to be in P12 after finishing 2nd a couple times here at the end of the season. And
look to row number 7, the 93 Cody Kinsey will be 13th. CJ Munyard will be to his outside in P14.
Cody Ivey is going to have a solid qualifying in P15, with AJ Green take time in P16.
That is your defending champion, AJ Green. Did not set time. Neither did last week's winner, Colin Forster, who went ahead of everybody in a 2-lap dash to the start-finish line. We got a wreck, though, as we're on the grid. That's AJ Green, or rather not AJ Green, that's Lance Hill, around in the 38. As we continue to look to the rest of the field, that's Austin Reedy, 18th, Danny Mitchell, Michael Newbraw, Tyler Warner, Mark Harris to finalize the 22-car field. But we've already got drama to start before the green flag is displayed. Lance Hill with a huge amount of trouble as they were coming off of the grid.
And it looks to me right here that he's going to try and warm up the tires, and he has a harsh moment of acceleration right about here. He's going to start accelerating to catch up, and right there the car just loses itself, just no traction. And I can't say I've seen that before, where you're trying to warm up the tires immediately as you get going and the car just goes away from you. That's I haven't seen that. Now he has right damage before the green flag's even dropped, and it's going to be very difficult for him to make up for that. And you see the pace car has the, so we're going to have an extra trip around the racetrack before we take the green flag, Kenneth. So that's going to offset sort of the normal procedure these guys have before the race. And how much is that going to affect your pole sitter and the guys starting up at the front knowing that they're going to have to do an extra pace lap they didn't account for?
Well, it's going to give them some more anxiety. And of course, if you look at strategy, if we end up in that case, of course, we really haven't started this race at all, so we don't know if any cautions will affect pit road strategy, but that's going to be some extra lost fuel, and that may change the game up just a little bit. So we're going to go an extra lap before we get to green flag. Lance Hill has gone back to his starting position, P6, but with heavy right front damage, so we won't know how it's going to affect his car aerodynamically. We'll go for 134 laps, just over 200 miles here from the Atlanta Motor Speedway, sort of over 320 kilometers on race distance. So basically the same amount of lappage that we did just 1 week ago at the Chicagoland Speedway. And so basically it is somewhat the same race, although with a different track. And of course with a different challenge overall. Eric Schaefer comes into this race with 2 wins on the calendar, or rather 3 wins, tied up with Lawson Peel for the most all-time so far in this Season 4 campaign. Curtis Kelly still without a win, although he's been very strong with these tracks and especially with these cars. So we'll see what he can do, as they will both be the first to reach the green flag from Hampton, Georgia. This time, pace car will make its way down to pit road. We've got 2 bow tie Camaros at the front. Schaefer, the one to lead us off, and we will go green flag racing for the 14th time in Season 4. And one car's in the grass. That's, I believe, all the way back there, Cody Ivey in the 81. AJ Green in the 48. He is stalled on pit road. Looks like he started this race from that very spot, but Cody Ivey already slightly losing the car before we even get to turn 1.
What a hectic start here, Kenneth. A lot of stuff going flag. Not every day you see the amount of activity we're seeing starts, but as we complete lap number 1, Eric to get up to second, trying to hold on to that P position now. He's there. You see guys are starting to move all over the place, Kenneth, and that's one thing that we Of course, they repaved it just this past winter for the real life series, and now NASCAR ran the super speedway package at what is the newly repaved Atlanta. And field, as you saw at the top of your screen, one car around, that's Marky Harris. He's on the bottom of the racetrack. That should mean no caution comes out. He's going to rejoin the racetrack. We're still under the green flag, so it looks like no caution at the moment.
So no caution for the ailing number 5. We'll try and take a look and see exactly what happened there, whether there was contact coming out of turn 2, or whether the car just got out of shape and just frankly lost it, hit the inside wall a ton. And so already this hectic start only continues to get more crazy, and we've got a great battle for second on back. That's Curtis Kelly, who falls to third. Craig Launslugger has moved himself to second. And how about Adam Alishire already putting the pressure here for the entrance into the top 3?
Alishire needs this run too, Ken. It's been a while since he's given himself a good run and a good result, so Alishire just wants to put this all behind him, return to the track that he saw his teammates have success at last season. He wants to have some of that success himself. He's going to get to the inside of Kelly there on the back straightaway. He's going to get to his quarter panel, see if he can drag him back just a little bit, and enters turn 3 side by side with a fair shot to try and take that position away. Kelly slides up just a little bit. That's going to allow Alishire to have a strong chance to come out turn 4 side by side, and they're going to be racing each other for position. You see Lance Hill down there in 6th, has not gained anything that damage to his race car, but lost the field slowly starting to catch up. And you see Launslugger's moved up the racetrack. He's kind of running that 3rd line, not all the way up against the wall, Kenneth, and you can go up there, but he's right now running that 3rd line, just trying to get some momentum up there.
And so far, it looks like 2 out of the championship 5 drivers that were running for the title here last season at Atlanta Motor Speedway already, both 4th and 5th right now. Alishire here trying to make some passes here on Curtis Kelly and Craig Launslugger, and of course Brandon Banks, who's in the far ground here in P5. As here comes the 14. Now more of an aggressive approach as the 71 got loose mid-corner. That's a 2-for-1 special out of turn 2, but it won't work for too long as Alishire will whip the car sideways, and Craig Launslugger will maintain his spot. So Alishire trying to make good work as a caution will come out. It's Austin Riddy in the 11. Problems for him at the exit of turn 2.
And it might be a similar issue to what we saw some of those guys at the front of the field happening, where the car was just getting loose from them. We got to replay here and get confirmation if that's the case or if something else happened, Kenneth. But I feel like that's probably what may have happened to the driver who's won 2 races this season. So it looks like that was exactly the case. Just goes off the turn 2. He's going to overcorrect it just a tad, and unfortunately that means a wrecked race car.
You see it right there. The car just steps out sideways, overcorrects it. So you're right there. Colin Forster, looks like a bunch of other drivers able to get away scot-free without hitting the 11. But Austin Riddy already in some trouble here to start off at lap number 7. We'll take a look. He was pretty much all by himself. It was a side-by-side battle behind him, a single car up in front of him, Jesse Prees, and then all of a sudden the 11 just whips sideways and goes around. And that's Cody Kinsey there making the dodge to the inside. He was the only one to swerve down low to make evasive maneuvers. And Austin Riddy now coming out of pit road. Looks like he's already equipped the fast repair. Of course, in the 4 Wide Racing Cup Series, there is 1 fast repair given to every single driver. So if you do get a damaged race car, chances are you've got the opportunity to get a clean one by the time the end of the race is near. But to have it used up so early on in tonight's coverage is not a good thing if you're Austin Riddy. It looks like Lance Hill is going to take the opposite approach here and is going to instead waste the time using this to, right now, damage repair his Chevrolet Camaro. Just a very interesting, a very awkward start for a lot of these guys, and it just shows you how punishing Atlanta Motor Speedway can be, even when you're not at full speed. That's something interesting I've never said before, but still.
It's just as difficult as if you were driving back out of this racetrack. Normally, when you're going down the highway 70 miles an hour, so you're kind of a little bit more relaxed. You're probably up on the wheel, but you don't think of 70 miles per hour as going too fast. But of course, that's a street car compared to a race car. So you're going that fast in a race car, it should be able to handle fine. And that was not the case there for Lance Hill. Of course, losing the car. And of course, on the start, we saw going through the grass and the pit road at the start. More recently with Austin Riddy having problems. So it looks like that might be a condition these guys are going to be fighting with all race, just in a car that barely has.
So we will remain under caution. Now the lights out on the iRacing official pace car, so we'll double them up and go back to green flag racing. It is Eric Schaefer still at the front of the field, was able to have a solid gap to second place. It won't be Curtis Kelly occupying the outside of the first row this time. It will be the Toyota Camry of Craig Laumslugger, who has moved up to second, so a solid charge for the 13 in the opening 9 laps. For the ones who have come down pit road, among them being Tyler Warner, pitted about 2 laps ago, Austin Reedy, Mark Harris, Lance Hill, and Daniel Michel, all back to 22nd, so they're going to have some work to do. But fortunately, at least the good thing about these long run races is that if you do make a mistake, you do have a lot of time to pick yourself back up and get yourself in the running for the win, or just a solid position at the end of it if that's what you so choose to do. So we'll come out of turn number 4. 22 will have the discretion here on the green flag, and this 22 very quick at a lot of these tracks, especially the larger ones, and Eric Schaefer was finally able to get his 3rd win just a couple of weeks ago at the short track at Bristol Motor Speedway. But these 1.5-mile tracks have also eluded him just a bit. He does not have a win in this configuration just yet. So we'll complete lap number 9. We'll cross the bridge to lap number 10, and it's an early start for the 22. We're back under green from Atlanta.
A good jump for him there. That's going to get him a sizable lead going into lap. Looks like he's doing a mighty job there to try P2 under his belt. Look at Alishire and Kelly actually are going to take him 3 wide through. They're going to be racing each other for that 2nd spot. That's what Schaefer wants to see behind him. 3 wide for P2. Who's going to back out of this one to try and concede the spot? Looks like Alishire is going to back out from the inside lane. Laumslugger still trying to work that top, but it looks like the 71 of Kelly's going to try and challenge him there. And look who's worked his way up there, Kenneth. Lawson Peel's found himself up in the top 5 now.
Yeah, Lawson Peel has made a lot of good moves here to start this race, and he's going to make an extra one here underneath the 14 Alishire. Maybe make the same case against Craig Laumslugger if he can do that, but won't be able to put the nose sufficiently to the inside. He'll back out on this 3-wide occasion there. Big move by the 13 Laumslugger. Switch back to the inside. Crossover back into turn 3.
Impressive move there that he had all the grip. You saw it was a rather aggressive move that he made to go to the bottom and hard to not step out from under him. Unfortunately, going to the inside didn't really work out. Just didn't have exit, and he's going to have to settle now in 3rd, try and go back to the outside. That do try and build that momentum again. That'll invite the 14 of Alishire to his inside. He's going to try and take that spot away, but much like what we saw Laumslugger fail to do, the bottom just not the way to go, Kenneth. And that seems like that's going to be the theme. If you're single file or you're not battling anybody, you probably want to run that bottom, but if you're trying to pass cars or defend, it looks like that high side has some. You're going to want to be up there in order to do just that.
Well, ultimately, there may be just a trade-off here if you get into a long run, because if you run that high side, yes, you can get a huge run out of either turn 2 or turn 4 and make passes complete, but you are also shredding the rear tires. So by working the bottom, you have a better chance of saving your equipment for a little bit longer and having more grip for longer runs in this race. So you have to make that crucial decision if you're a driver, whether you want to be all the way up high using the momentum or going all the way down low, losing some speed, but ultimately keeping your car steady for at least lap 15, lap 20, if we get to that point in a run. Still side by side for P3 on the racetrack. Laumslugger on the outside. There's Alishire down low. They have broken away from Lawson Peel. You see him just in the background there. Now Kyle Benson will look to the inside and try to make a move, but Alishire has been pretty much hell-bent on keeping himself underneath this 13, staying in the top 3. This time he's going to lose the battle, and he'll try it once again, maybe into turn 1.
Look at this shot here, Kenneth, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. We have the cars almost in numerical order. 12, 13, and 14 all up in there. You see Peel's kind of lost a little bit of ground, and they're battling for this P3 position right now, the last step on the podium. Alishire now goes to the bottom, has a good run, just has the nose in front, but now Laumslugger's going to get that run off the corner, and he's going to try and hold on to that spot. And we have a cloud cover here over the racetrack, and it was very sunny just outside just now. You see 3 and 4 has a little bit of that sun, but 1 and 2 and a little bit of the back straightaway seems to be under more shade, and I wonder what's going to do. Right there, a bit of a moment there for Kevin D'Elia, who gets loose off of turn 4, the part of the racetrack that's sunny, and I think that's a perfect example of what I was just saying.
And the track temp very hot here at Atlanta. That's why they call it Hotlanta Motor Speedway instead of just Atlanta Motor Speedway. Kevin D'Elia with a bit of trouble there out of turn 4, and that was with a fight. That's Craig Laumslugger, though, spinning in front of them. He's going to come back up the track, and I believe that may bring out a caution flag here for the second time this evening. It will
No
not,
caution.
but that is a heavily destroyed Toyota Camry and Craig Lumslugger.
I noticed the 13 around, Kenneth, but unfortunately I had my mic muted. And it was what we had seen, something similar with the 11 of Reed. But he's going to get loose and tries to not spin it, but he goes into the inside wall hard and almost spins it back up the track, but locking the brakes up kept the car pointed in the right direction. Everybody able to take the evasive action to avoid him, and no caution comes out, but that's going to be some hefty. Unfortunate that it happens under this green flag run for the 13 Lumslugger. Here you are on board. Almost there. You see before he starts to spin down the racetrack. Almost had it under control. Unfortunately, stepped out just enough, and now he has damage to his race car, and he's over half a lap down.
And he is all the way back in 22nd, of course, with the fact that we had that caution, and with also the fact that a majority of the people in this race are on the lead lap. That means that the 13 falls pretty much all the way to dead last, and he's going to have to recoup himself with a very torn up number 13. And such a shame for him. He was running very quickly up here within the top 3 and could have put a fight to your race leader, Eric Schaefer, but it's just that slight little movement of the race car. And again, we've heard from these drivers countless amount of times that they are very hard to save. Once you get them sideways, there's practically no hope in saving the race car unless you are just super quick on the reaction time. And in the case of the 13, it was just too little, too late. And that's the middle ground, Francisco, where you still have to learn the nuances of this next-gen car, because in the Gen 6 car, again, we've touted it so many times that you can easily save that car. Once you get sideways, you can kind of hang it out just a little bit and then get it back straight by the time you exit the corner, especially at these very abrasive tracks where you're naturally known to get loose every now and then. With these next-gen cars, you don't have that freedom to just hang it out a little bit more and then know, okay, I'm going to save and have that confidence. You cannot have that confidence, because if you think it's going to save itself, you're frankly wrong, and that car is just going to be sideways, and it's going to go around like it did with the 13.
And that's just not a situation with only the Gen 6 in which it's like that. Of course, the other stock cars are just like that as well. When you think of the stock cars available on iRacing, Gen is the first of its kind that is like this in nature. So it's kind of a learning curve for everybody to drive different stock cars on the sim, and you know, it's not fun. I can tell you from experience, it's not fun trying to drive a car like that when you don't know if it's just as likely to spin out as it is to stay on the racetrack. It's very inconsistent, I can tell you that much. One minute it looks like the car's going to be fine, the next lap it'll probably want to spin out well before you put in any significant amount of wheel in it. And sometimes when you go on the throttle it'll want to spin, sometimes when you go on the brakes it'll want to spin, other times it doesn't do that. So it's just difficult because the car itself doesn't blend to any sort of consistency. So I applaud these guys for being able to do that, because if I was out there on the racetrack, I probably would not be able to hang on in a long run, not for any other reason than what I just mentioned. It's just very difficult to understand when the car is going to spin when you apply brakes and spin when you apply throttle, because it's just so inconsistent.
So here's a look at a driver who's been consistent over the first 23 laps. Started back in P12 and now up to 4th, so +8 here since the drop of the green. Kyle Benson in the 10, the Little Caesar Chevrolet Camaro. He's now starting to catch in on 3rd and 2nd. Adam Alashar and Curtis Kelly. In fact, here he goes to the inside in turn 3. Underneath the 14, we'll see if he can make that pass complete, but Kyle Benson just got off of running a very rough combo in itself. 1987 cars at the Rockingham Speedway, trying to qualify for the Rockingham 508 that benefits the Dale Jr. Foundation, a very special iRacing event going on right now that Blake McCandless has put up for a majority of the iRacing service, and a lot of big drivers, a lot of big names in there. Kyle Benson was one of the names entered into the list trying to get in. Unfortunately, they had some tough luck in one of the heat races and did not end up with better luck in the LCQ, so he was not able to end up in the main feature race tonight. But good thing we're seeing him here on the racetrack and probably finding some redemption. He's running very quick laps right now, 32.2 last time by, the fastest out of the top 5.
Of course, somebody that you and I also know that was in Parker White, and he's doing a pretty good job. Last I checked, he's up there in the top 5, so nice to see him doing well. But look, Kenneth, this dogfight for second is getting very intense. The sun's back out, so the track's fully under the sun. You see the side of Alashar, very close between him and the outside wall. He's going to take that position, and it's kind of like a train almost. You got to get to the outside of a guy while you have a chance and make up positions. And Benson's really starting to put a move almost to the outside of Kelly. He might want to look to it, and he's trying to get there. Kelly's not going to exactly give it to him, but you can see the 10 is really trying to be aggressive spots. Benson, runner-up yesterday, last season. He's been good here. He's had good performances. Was up in that championship battle up until that pit road speeding penalty in the middle of the race that he could never recover from. And now he's up here trying to take that second spot away from teammate Curtis Kelly to see if he can hunt down that race leader. And look at this. It's almost a 5-way battle for two. All the while, Eric Schaefer's pulling away.
Right there you look at Eric Schaefer crossing the start-finish line. It's still door-to-door for P2 on back, and pretty much Kyle Benson opened the door there for Lawson Peel to get back in this, because if you can remember, Lawson Peel was close to catching up to the likes of Craig Laumslugger, Curtis Kelly, and Adam Alishar at the time before the 13 had that issue as a huge wriggle comes out of the 14. Lawson Peel had struggled a bit to keep up the pace, but now he's seemingly getting back in it without any large problems as he gets to the inside of Alishar, and it appears he will clear for that position P4 out of the racetrack, and Benson would do the same out of turn 4, so bring the 10 up 10 spots since the drop of the green. And once again, Francisco setting a faster time than your race leader by almost a full 10. 32.499 for your second place car Benson, 32.579 for your race leader Eric Schaefer.
Is there any way that we can confirm if he came down pit run under that caution? Because if he did, it would definitely help, but
he did
I'm not sure if he would. Oh, he did not. So that's even better. I just thought at least somebody probably would have came under that caution just to try and do something different. I didn't pay attention to that, but what a run he's doing here. He's able to drive his way up to able to jump on the outside of these guys and make up spots, and he's starting to work his way up there. And of course, Kyle Benson, like we said, he's a good driver. He's proven it. He's made championship fives, been a championship contender. He's won multiple races in the last season and a bit. Has not exactly gone his way, having just the one win at Darlington last season, Kenneth. But again, we know the talent that he has behind the wheel of a race car, and he's going to try and see if he can do his best to get back to victory lane, assert himself back into that championship battle. He's been in it twice. He's not come away as a champion. Maybe the third time's a charm.
And for Benson, of course, last trip to a championship 5 for him was 2 seasons ago. Was not there as a part of season 3's championship 5. Unfortunately, did not make the championship round, but did do so the season that Scott Healy came up with the title at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and Benson had practically his championship hopes cut short with incidents there at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and no doubt looking for a trip back to the championship 5. He has yet to win a race this season, but the strength alone could get him to victory lane sooner than later. He's a driver that spent a lot of time trying to get to victory lane this season, but finally did so 1 week ago and got the monkey off his back. Colin Forrester in the 99 for Stonks Motorsports right now has moved his way up to 7th after starting 17th. So much like Kyle Benson, has done a great job of picking his way through the field. And Forrester now, Francisco, the most important factor, with no worries about what's going to happen the next couple of races, because he's already locked in. It's a definite win that he really needed after many races where it had seemed that he had speed but just could not put the final puzzle piece together.
Yeah, that was a win that Forrester needed. He's had speed but just couldn't close out races. And in order to win championships and be a championship contender, you have prove that you can win races, because it's very difficult to not win races and be a champion. We saw Tony Kibbett do it in the ARCA Series last season, so it's not impossible, but it just makes it very difficult on yourself. And if you can avoid that, if you can just make it easier on yourself, have that better season so that you can make it easier to get to that point, then it's all the better. You see AJ Green a little bit sideways trying to see if he can get around that car at the end of this train. It looks like all these cars kind of pulled away from the rest of the field. That's the 0 of Jesse Freeze, who won yesterday's race, Kenneth. And all these guys are just about 3 seconds ahead of Lance. The next couple of cars with Austin Reedy back there. So for the most part, the front couple cars in this field up in the top 10 have kind of pulled away.
They definitely have pulled away. The next driver in line is Lance Hill, who, by the way, spent that time on pit road getting the damage fixed and still has some significant right front damage on his Coca-Cola Chevrolet, but at least for the most part, he is back up in the top 10. Same deal for Austin Reedy, a solid recovery for him after causing our first caution tonight. And with the fast repair and with some of the fresh tires, I believe that he took on that pit stop. He is P11 right now on the racetrack. So a good move up through the field for him. Still side by side for P8, AJ Green and Jesse Priest going at it. Of course, they're trying to catch up to the likes of Colin Forster and the gang. They're probably going to do so with the way they've been battling on their own regard, but side by side here between the Beef Machine and some new colors, JT on the sides, in the front, and the rear of this 00 Jesse Priest car, who's going to run the high side here in 1 and 2, but to no avail. How about this? 3 wide, about almost there. Curtis Kelly's going to hit the wall. Alishire is going to go sideways, and it is going all over the place here, about 4th on back. These drivers have been seemingly falling through, coming back up, and just having a bunch of moments, especially that 14. He's been sideways probably more times than I can count, and he has managed to still save the car.
Curtis Kelly's in some trouble. He's been on the outside wall at least. Car, it's not doing him any good. It's definitely hurting him aerodynamically. Look at Green able to go by on the inside, and Freeze is going to be able to go to the inside there. Look at that right there. That's not going to help you exactly in the corners. I know these cars are less aero sensitive than what the old ones were, Kenneth, but at the end of the day, that kind of damage right there at these kind of speeds, it's just much to really prevent you from being able to keep the car at maximum ability. And you see Forster, the pass on the bottom, strong move to be able to do that.
Yeah, very strong move, but also at the same time, that 14, his tires are pretty much falling off. And again, that's back to the trade-off point that I made earlier in the race. If you're going to stay on that outside lane, you're going to have to anticipate at some point that in the long run, if you don't treat the throttle pedal right, you don't treat this car right either, then the back end's going to step out. You're going to get very loose, and ultimately you're going to lose out on position here from a lot of guys who maybe did a better job at saving tires and were not as aggressive up there as you were. And that shows with Alishire getting very sideways. Him and Curtis Kelly alone have been very aggressive in this first stint of the race. So chances are now they're falling back here through the top 5, top 10. Fortunately, there's still a good gap from everybody 10th on back, so it's not going to be the biggest loss, but you'd rather be up at the front top 3 than be around the top 5, as again another wiggle arises out of the 14. I can imagine this is just a hard time behind the wheel if you're Alishire right now.
He's trying to make sure he can get to a fuel window, because these guys could go about 45 or so laps on a full tank of fuel. We had the caution lap, but what you're expecting here with this race is a 2-stop strategy race, Kenneth. You could probably go about 45, 45, and then 44 the rest of the way, and that should do you fine with no serious worries about having to save an egregious amount of fuel or anything. But all you have to do is make it to at least lap 45 on your first stint, and that should help you out in the rest of the race. And we didn't see this at this point of the race in last season's race, but a crucial note between this race here this season and last season as the caution. This race is actually 50 miles shorter than what it was a season ago. Less couple laps, about 30 less laps than last season. A big difference there, and that could prove crucial. But right there, the caution flag, there you see why. The 25, Daniel Michel, the dominant driver a week ago, back end damage, severely hurt. And I can't help but feel that this is exactly what we're talking about throughout the day. It's just cars getting loose there in turn 2, and it's a trouble spot.
And for Austin Reedy, it was a trouble spot for him. Got him all out of shape there to bring us our first caution, and it's the same deal here for our second. Is the 25 Michel running behind Michael Newbraw and company. And right there, same deal as the 11, although probably much worse contact to the outside wall. And the 25 goes for a spin. There's the rear clip completely torn off. Nicholas Vizzuti gets by without any problems. Slight miss there for, looked to be the 33 of Tyler Warner. Everybody gets by without any significant problems, but the California native already with a big hit to the outside wall. And of course, you mentioned it, Francisco, the most dominant driver outright at the Chicagoland Speedway just 1 week ago. And unfortunately, it has not been his day so far in the opening 41 here from Atlanta. Leaders are down pit road, maybe some damage repair, but 4 tires and fuel going to be the consensus. We'll take a peek and see if Eric Schaefer is the first one out of pit road. Benson was challenging for the lead. How about Lawson Peel? A huge charge on pit road. Have to imagine it was just a great stop. 14.2 for the 12, and that puts him second.
Very tight battle there on the exit of pit road, and that number 1 pit stall definitely helped Schaefer edge him. Kind of stalled it just for a brief second, but knew that he can gas it up the exact amount he needed to, and was able to squirt it just in front of that 12 car. Benson almost nicking them as well, just coming out just behind the 12 of Peel. And how about the 88 of Brandon T. Banks? He's moved his way up into the top 5, up into P4, while Colin Forster is in the 5th spot. So good job by them to move up spots. AJ Green is up into 6th, and this is definitely a caution that Adam Alishire wanted. Tires falling off a cliff.
That's definitely true, and Alishire will now be listed, I believe, as 7th, should the two drivers that are coming down pit road now fall through position. It's Tyler Werner, Cody Ivy that had stayed out. And officially, yes, as of the cross of the start-finish line, Adam Alashire is P7. Lawson Peel, though, will have a solid charge up against Eric Schaefer. And I almost had a presumption there that Peel had taken 2 tires or had done something differently. Maybe it's the fuel fill that was the difference. But ultimately, it was 0.3 of a second quicker, of 14.2 for Lawson Peel versus the 14.5 by your leader, Eric Schaefer. And that gives Peel the crucial spot to be outside row 1 in this restart, which will happen at lap 43 of 134. So it's Eric Schaefer, who has practically been the best so far, has led practically every single lap. He will lead this race back to green. Lawson Peel will be outside in second. Kyle Benson, Brandon T. Banks, what a move it's been for both of them so far in the first 42. They're third and fourth. AJ Green will be the last one in the top 5. His teammate Colin Forster will be to his outside in 6th. Austin Riddy, Adam Alashire, Lance Hill, and Jesse Prees are the last ones to round out your current top 10 from Hampton, Georgia, as the pace car will make its way back down a pit road in just a couple of moments. And it'll be all eyes on the 22 on where he will go first. Pace car is down. Schaefer going to wait a couple of moments to the restart zone, and we're back under green from Atlanta.
And now your top 2 drivers from the whole season point are 1-2, Kenneth. So we're going to see what kind of show these guys are able to put on. It's one of the few times we're going to see them battling each other. They've been able to win a lot of races, get to all that success, but we haven't seen them hold the track together all that much at the front of the field. You were robbed from that a week ago, but right now they're at the front of the field. We're going to see what they're able to give us.
And Lawson Peel already trying to make up significant time. Schaefer running the middle, Peel running the very bottom. And same deal for Kyle Benson as they're side-by-side for 4th. Brandon Banks now under fire from Colin Forster. Adam Alashire trying to make his case underneath Austin Riddy as Lance Hill watches on right behind them. Some great battles around 4th on back, and there goes the teammates side-by-side. Green and Forster, maybe some beef out of turn 2. Forster will have the betterment right there. He'll clear in front of the 48, his teammate, and will slot himself just behind the 88. Here comes Reedy down to the inside in turn 3.
I'm glad you said that there was beef, because anytime you're around AJ Green with that beef machine on the racetrack, once again representing those Ricky Bobby colors, it is me, and that is definitely AJ Green. She's pulling out that speed, showing that is very much indeed him on the racetrack.
And also just a great paint scheme overall, and just shows you the boldness of AJ Green. And obviously came into this race, Atlanta Motor Speedway. Last time he was here, he was champion. So, I mean, he's got to have some defending ground to do. He wasn't the winner. He didn't take the checkered flag away outright. It was Lawson Peel's checkered flag at the end of that race, but it was Green's championship. So, maybe have some defending rights here if he can go to the front of the field and take this win. The 48, P6 right now, just behind his teammate, Colin Forster. They're side-by-side for P2. That's Lawson Peel way up high in 1 and 2. Kyle Benson down low.
He's going to try and take that position away, but like we've seen, the story of the race is the outside. So if the 12 is able to keep that position, Benson's going to have to concede that and try again. He's going to try and roll that. See the flames come out of the 12 there for a brief moment. That means he came out of the throttle. And that's something with these next-gen cars, Kenneth, that you can see when the flames come out on both sides of the race car. When you see those flames, you know that the driver's lifting off of the throttle, and that could very much be indicative of the driver behind and tell them what they're able to do. If they're able to visually see when a car is lifting instead of having to listen for it.
And also, don't let the visuals fool you. Right now, you're looking at cars with the 7-inch spoiler on the rear end of these next-gen cars. Of course, that is to know there are on the Super Speedway package, but with the physics on the iRacing service, they did not get a visual update to put the 4-inch spoiler that is supposed to be on these cars here. So you get a 7-inch spoiler on the visuals, but they do handle like they have the 4-inch spoilers. So if it's a little bit of a confusion, I understand, because I was confused by the time they put this in the sim and did not update it. It's the same thing when we get to Homestead of Miami Speedway in just 1 week. They will have the appearance of the large spoilers, but there is no high downforce package. These cars do have low downforce, and that's why you're seeing a lot of lifting and a lot of sliding here from Atlanta. Here comes Banks. A forceful move down low in 3 and 4. Will try to move him underneath for 3rd, but cannot complete the run out of turn 4. And this time will leave the space open for Colin Forster to make way.
Forster's trying to see if he can move his way up through the field, and he's going to try and fill that gap. You see, trying to get to the outside of Banks before Banks is trying to move up, and he'll do just that. He'll get to the outside of the 88 Geico machine. He's going to try and bring his AJ Green with them. And there you see they're going into turn 3, and now as Benson's still trying to see if he can figure out a way to get past the 12 of Lawson Peel. All the while, Colin Forster's trying to close in on the back bumper. And look at that. This is the view you want to have. You want to be out here in front of the field, leading the race, pulling away.
It's slightly over a second of a lead for Eric Schaefer right now. And see that 1 and 2, the entire field running way up high on the racetrack, just to the outside safer barrier there. So not many takers down low to save some tires. Everybody all on a single file train. And I figure in a way, Francisco, it could be to try and catch up to this 22. Of course, you are saving tires, so that is going to be a very big factor. But if you're spending less time going side by side, ultimately, you're going to be a lot faster catching up to the 22 than if you were side by side and running for position. So maybe they've got this thing in their head that if they stay this way, maybe it can help their case against the leader. Colin Forster's going to go against the grain, though, and try to go inside of Kyle Benson.
Well, you do have to run different lines at the end of the day, because even no matter how much dirty air you cars, Kenneth, there's always going to be dirty air somewhere, especially it's just impossible to eliminate it altogether. As look at some tire smoke there. I believe somebody made a mistake up there. It may have been your race leader just barely losing a little bit of time. But these guys have to run different lines because 99 runs right behind the 10. You see, he can't really get right behind him. He has to run a different line, not just because he wants to maybe get around him or do that sort. If he runs behind him, that's going to hurt his car. And of course, you don't want to hurt your car. You want to try and run. You can do something different. Just try and be an overall positive momentum forward. And the outside lane generally is, but if all you need is just half a car width side of a car, it's going to do you a tremendous amount of difference. And you see, he's going to get a big run here on the 12 of Peel as he goes into turn one. Back up, see what Peel does, moves about a little bit higher. He's going to use that wall just to get the car to turn a little bit. He's going to get a solid exit here off the corner, get another run in. He's going to try the same thing.
And what I'm noticing here from fourth on back, especially the Sox Motorsports teammates, it's more so evident in 1 and 2 than it is in 3 and 4, is the fact that you can see the difference once again. We'll see if they end up doing it once again once they cross the start finish line and head over into turn 1. The 12, the 22, and the 10, 1, 2, 3 are all running very high up on the racetrack, and they don't move. You see them right next to the outside wall. You see them stay there without any problems. But for Forster and Green, as now Green would try and go underneath his teammate, they would go up high and then arc themselves down low. So they're trying a diamond approach to see if they can get a better exit out of 2 and avoid the wake in the air that's being created by Benson and company up in front. So a very interesting difference of opinion there on each of the lines they're taking in 1 and 2. 3 and 4 seems to be more consensual. Drivers all the way down to the inside wall on that white line. As you could say, you want to Harvick it all the way down there to get some extra grip on the left side tires. And maybe we'll see it again, but they're 3 wide for a short moment. Forster trying to go back against his teammate in 1 and 2. He'll slide up the track, but in a good enough time as AJ Green had cleared himself behind Benson. And now this will give way for Brandon Banks to possibly make a challenge for P5.
And Banks the last couple of weeks, Kenneth, he's been consistently up here in this top 5, top 6 area, and it's been a good job for him. We don't really see Banks up there challenging for wins all that much, but he's definitely improved his general performances in the last couple of races, especially the 5 consistently. So he's been stepping it up, trying to see if he can get back to that championship 5 via consistency. We saw him do it a season ago. As you see right there, AJ Green had a moment. He was off the corner, lose the spot to Forster. But Brandon Banks, Kenneth, he's definitely shown one of the more consistent drivers of the season.
And definitely so, and obviously you can make the case. I mean, Championship 5 last season here at the Atlanta Motor Speedway, and Banks came into that Championship 5 without a race win and still doesn't have a race win in the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series either. So it just shows you how strong this 88 car is each and every week. And no matter how many times he does not go to victory lane, it doesn't phase him because he could just get all the solid points, and he will be a dark horse. And if he could stay in that place, maybe get a win of his own this season, or just continue on like he did in Season 3, he sure enough might be another championship competitor once we head over to the Kansas Speedway later on this summer. 57 laps complete of the 134. We've got a solid green flag run in here. And Atlanta Motor Speedway is known for a lot of things, but racing is also known for a lot of sights and sounds, as I believe there might have been a hit to the outside wall, maybe somebody around. I don't believe so, so we're going to stay green, but why don't we crank it up to 11? Crank it up here on MaxSpeedTV as Eric Schaefer continues to lead the race. Eric Schaefer has just slammed the outside wall in turns 1 and 2 under green. And I believe he has kept it without spinning. Now, never mind, a couple of cars into the outside wall. That's Cody Kinsey and your former race leader, Eric Schaefer. So huge problems for the 22 with lap 61.
And he's smoking, Kenneth. That's going to mean damage faster. He's going to have to pull it, but he's going to have to limp around the racetrack. And Kenneth, I can't believe what I'm seeing. It was an unforced error on the 22's part. He's going to go through the quad oval, all fine, no cars around him. And on the exit of the quad oval, a simple mistake just tags the outside wall. The car is going to bounce off of it, very extreme, and slams back into the wall. An unforced error when you're by yourself, pulling away. That's the kind of mistakes you cannot make in order to win races.
And then here comes the 93. He'll come into frame in just a couple of moments out of turn 2 right there, slowing down. I figured that Kinsey was going to run the very outside against the safer barrier, and then notice at the last second there was a smoking Eric Schaefer right in front of him. We were just on board on the Crank It Up camera with Brandon Banks on his onboard shot. And so Eric Schaefer has taken a trip, has limped the car to pit road, is going to get some tires, and it does not look like a fast repair will be enabled, so that may be the nail in the coffin for your pole sitter tonight.
That's unfortunate, Kenneth. He was definitely fast today, and he's going to lose out on that one. Points aren't that big of a factor for him with all those wins he has. At this point, all he's racing is for wins, but you don't want to end it like that. And, you know, going back to that mistake, Kenneth, I mean, I believe you talked about this on a couple of broadcasts. I'm not sure if I've been in them, but one of the hardest things to do on this is basically just run repeated laps all over when you're by yourself, like if it's a test session when you're out there. Because Schaefer's been able to pull away from the field, so out there has a big lead on these guys, isn't worried about them catching up to him. Pulling away, all you have to do at that point is just make sure you run a fast enough lap to keep doing what you're doing. Just keep it off the wall, keep it above the white line, and you do that and you should be fine. And unfortunately, just couldn't keep it off the wall in a rather simple place, being the quad oval. I was very shocked to see that happen.
And it's what I call, Francisco, the overthinking zone. When you're running all by yourself, you know that you have a gap from yourself and other people. And it also happens in the midfield, too. Don't get it twisted. It's not only drivers that are up at the front of the field. You can be maybe 10th or 15th, maybe even 22nd. But if you're running laps all by yourself, you're more so focused on your own running and running on the track against yourself, practically, than against other drivers on the track. And usually, when you get into that rhythm, you can get distracted and you can make those slight mistakes. Or, like I said, the overthinking zone, you overthink the way you're driving the car, and you think that you have to make these minuscule movements, and then all of a sudden, the mistake happens out of nowhere, and it happened to the 22, and so unfortunate for Schaefer, who had led the majority of this race up until this point, will hand off the lead to the 12 of Lawson Peel. And it's just a huge shunt to Eric Schaefer. Of course, Schaefer is locked into the playoffs via his 3 wins on the season, tied with Lawson Peel for the most in the season out of any driver. So he will not have a worry for the playoffs. But, I mean, it's just another hit, Francisco, to what's a good race. And I know you as a driver, you probably have that experience more often than I do, since I barely run on the track at all. Just knowing that you have a dominant race put together, you know that you're doing so well, things are on the upswing, and then all of a sudden either a mistake happens or somebody gets involved in something and you get caught up in it without your own fault, and it can just hurt a lot, even if you're locked in and there's no worries about making the playoffs. And
that's why I run test sessions a good amount, Kenneth. I don't run without a purpose, and usually if there's a track that I practice at in order to make sure that these kind of mistakes, I'll do it a lot. You can attest to that kind of thing. You have to make sure that you can run several laps here to the point where if there's nobody around you, you can run basically eyes closed and not make a mistake. And to get to that point, it's very difficult, especially with a car like this. So it's I don't blame Schaefer with that, considering the race car, but you have to sort of get as close to that as possible, especially when you have that sort of lead. Because if you're out by that big margin, 1 or 2 second lead, and you're pulling away, you have to make sure that you stay focused in one way, right? You have to ensure that you're focusing on something with the race car. Alishire, damn, he's gonna tries to save it very loose as the car is going all over the place. He's able to keep it under him. You see him shaking the car still on the back straightaway, even after recouping it. He's going through 3 and 4 now, and he's able to keep it put in the right direction, Kenneth. But you have to keep focus on something when you're out there in the lead. You can't just lose all focus and just go in a dead zone. Sometimes you do, but you have to stay focused on something at some point, whether it's lap time, you're trying to run a certain pace, whether you're trying to count a certain lap because you're trying to get to a certain lap before a pit stop, or do something. You have to do something. You can't just be quiet, not thinking of anything while you're driving out here on the racetrack. Just like that, you actually lose concentration and you make a mistake just like the 22 did.
It's so tough for Eric Schaefer, who is multiple laps down. He is still 22nd, now 7 laps down on the racetrack. And you saw a bit of the movement from the 14 of Adam Alishire. For him, he's fallen back to 17th after starting 7th on that last restart, on that last yellow, where it appears he was going to be 9th, but then the 2 lap cars had stayed out. Then he moved up to 7th, and it has not been a great start on the run since for the driver of the 14. Here's a nice battle 9th on back. This is rather Tyler Warner, a lapped car, so these are cars getting around him. No effect on track position. Danny Michel, who caused the most recent yellow on the track, got his fast repair equipped. He's now up to P11. Lance Hill in P10. Kevin D'Elia leading the charge in P9. So a good trio here. These guys have been going at it for the past couple laps. And how about a move to the inside? Daniel Michel underneath Lance Hill out of turn 2.
And of course, remember, Michel's trying to make up that ground for bringing out our first caution straightaway. And he's trying to see if he can do his best to recoup that. We know he's fast. He was definitely fast last week and had a chance. Hasn't had the track position here tonight, but he's trying to make up for it. See if he can have a solid top 10, top 5 run going. And as we're past the halfway point, he is up in there in the top 10, trying to take that 9 spot away from D'Elia. He's going to get a good run there on the bottom, and he's going to clear him there off of turn 2. So move Michel now clear up in the 9th. Trying to see if now he can close up on the main pack of leaders up there. As there's a little bit of the backside kind of separated, actually, as that's Austin Reedy, Curtis Kelly, and Jesse Prees kind of in their own little mix there on the backside of the top 10 and outside of the top 5. So these guys are about 3 seconds behind the top 5, and this is the next group that Michel has to catch if he wants to take positions away and move up in the race overall. But yeah, it looks like this is something strange, Kenneth. We're seeing breakaways throughout. We're seeing a couple of cars and then a big break, and then another couple of cars, a big break, and then another couple of cars. I don't think I've seen this at intermediate tracks to this extent.
It's just a fact of the separation and the tire wear. Of course, everyone's going to have different equipment by the time a long run gets in based on how they drive it. And so you're going to have this separation, especially when a long green flag run continues like this. We almost would have had a caution if Schaefer had gone around or if anybody got into him and went sideways. But since he had kept it straight, and since Cody Kinsey also had kept it straight when he went into the rear end of the driver, the 22, that's what led us to stay green here. And I was just turning the camera over to Kyle Benson because he had a moment there, was looking at that battle from 6 on back, and Benson was running well within the top 5, or well inside the top 5, and it looks like there might have been a little hiccup there out of the 10, out of turn 2, underneath Lawson Peel, and that was a battle for the race lead, Francisco, in the first 2 corners. And similar to the previous 2 cautions, the 10 gets sideways, slightly overcorrects, right about there, almost gets into the 99, as Forster had to check up a slight contact there between the 2, and they had checked up dramatically at the entrance of turn 3, and that's what led Benson to coop his car back up on the apron and just lost a bunch of that time. He is still fit. It looks like Benson is around, and indeed so. He's got heavy damage on the right side of his Camaro, so it's gone from bad to worse for the 10.
And that happened in real time, Kenneth, just as you were coming back from that. And heavy damage now in the right front of the 10. Just things are going all right for a lot of the people inside the top 5, Kenneth. Just if you're up in not been a spot in this race, and Benson's the recent one to strike off of this. You see this turn 4, he's going to slide up, get loose, overcorrects it, but with the quad oval, Kenneth, you just don't have the room to the wall to save that. I think if that's the tri-oval type of setting, I think he saves that. I think he barely brushes the wall, but he keeps the car relatively intact with very little damage and doesn't lose any time. But now he has a damaged car, and now we have a caution on the racetrack. And look at right there, that looks to be the CJ Munier car with some more damage to his race car, and that's going to neutralize the race once more.
Very slow out on the racetrack. Not sure if he was the only one involved in this caution or whether he was just trying to get out of the way here. There's the pace car on the apron trying to get back up to motion, and I believe it was cause of the caution, the 89. There it is, a hard hit to the outside wall on the quad oval. And you're right, Francisco, about the quad oval configuration and that almost save by Benson. If we were at Chicagoland, that probably either would have been A, a slight tap to the outside wall, or B, a complete save. But because there's such a sharp angle in this quad over configuration at Atlanta, it's going to happen the same do at tracks like Texas and Charlotte. Then you're going to hit the outside wall, and that's what happened to the 10. This is his lightsaber, though, because he lost a bunch of spots, but he will not go multiple laps down. And since we're already past halfway in this race, he can have the option to go for the faster pair, and it will not hurt him too significantly. So the caution comes out here on behalf of the 89. Here's the 12, and the rest of your leaders now stretching themselves onto pit road, the slight left behind the iRacing official pace car. And so everyone's going to come in for 4 tires and fuel. And with that run before the yellow, I was about to bring up the notion of pit stops under green. But because that caution came out, it just resets the whole field once again.
And that really helps Lieutenant Benson, who had that trouble. I'm not sure if he'll take the faster repair, try and take that damage repair. And actually, faster instantly fixes the right front of his race car. So he doesn't want to sit there and take all that time. So now he's not going to have fast repair for the cars are starting to exit their way out of pit road. Peel's going to be Forrester, and he's going to win the race off pit road with a comfortable enough of a margin. Brandon Banks, though, Kenneth, up to third. A good pit stops here by him throughout the race, and now he's going to be in the top 3.
Now, 14.4, the fastest out of the top 3, or actually not the second fastest out of the top 3. He was slightly slower than Peel's stop at a 14.1 for Peel, but he was faster than Forrester by almost half a second at 14.8 for the 99. So again, a solid pit crew moment for the driver of the 88, and Brandon T. Banks just continues to build up the consistency, and frankly, Francisco continued to build up spots in the field because felt like he was in the top 10, now he was in the top 7, then he was in the top 6, then the top 5, then the top 4, and now he's in the top 3. So things are only getting better for the Geico machine tonight.
Yeah, things are going up in the proper direction for Banks, and he's been fast here before. He was fast here yesterday. He was fast here last season in both events as well, part of the 4-wide racing series. And even before we covered 4-wide, he's been fast here. So it's just something about the Atlanta Motor Speedway that Brandon T. Banks seems to like, Kenneth. And you never know. He might break through and get that win here today. He's been fast all night. There's no reason to not think that he'll stay up here the rest of the night, barring any sort of mistakes that either are his or not his, but at least if it's under his control, it's looking really good right now. He's been up here all night.
And it's been a great race and a clean one, in fact, for the driver of the 88, but he does have 2 drivers he has to beat before he can call himself a race leader. Lawson Peel, Colin Forrester have been just as good as of late in this event. So at least for the most part, Banks still has some things left to check on the boxes before he can try and go for the win of this race. We are approaching the final 55 laps here from the virtual Atlanta Motor Speedway. Well, as we're already halfway through this race, let's take a look at your race summary, see how things have unfolded over the course of the event here from Hampton, Georgia. We have 54 laps to go. It'll be 53 once we cross the start-finish line. We've had 3 cautions so far. First one on behalf of a spinning car in Austin Reedy, and then came Daniel Michel, and then came this most recent caution with CJ Monier, all 3 of them being single car incidents for the most part. We've had 9 caution laps. We'll bring this, I believe, 10 caution laps, and we've had a total of 1 lead change, and that was with the misfortune from the 22 of Eric Schaefer, handing off the lead to the 12 of Lawson Peel. So that's a race summary so far from Atlanta, and the lights are out on the iRacing official pace car, so we are ready to get back under green here with 82 laps complete and still a long amount of time left to go. So Francisco, I mean, it's been a rather interesting race. We haven't seen too much on the strategy sheets, but we have seen a lot when it comes down to the handling of the cars, the tire wear of the cars, and the driving style. What has been the biggest thing you've noticed so far with this race as of the moment?
We've definitely had some green flag runs here, Kenneth, which is nice to see, and it goes back to what we saw last year. But they've been consistent enough, and I think that's kind of what race. We need the race to have consistent enough long runs to have drivers have good long run speed, short run speed, and enough battling on restarts and enough pit stops to where guys are able to move to the favor of guys like the 88 of Banks, like the 71 of Kelly, and even the 0 of Jesse Freeze. Jesse Freeze up here, up in the top 5, Kenneth, doing a good job here tonight. We're going to see what he's able to do on this restart. Daniel Michel also has worked his way major stack up there. You see Forrester struggled on the top side. We see this in real life a lot of the time with this old surface, Kenneth, and Forrester still struggling to get going. And now we're 3 wide into turn 1. Benson to the inside of Forrester. Kelly's back there as well. Jesse Freeze and Brandon Banks have benefited the most out of this.
That was a sluggish restart overall by the outside lane. Forrester got caught off guard by your race leader, and now he's trying to pick up the pieces there underneath Jesse Freeze for third. Lawson Peel, Brandon Banks got away without a hitch. And so far, they're 1-2-99, trying to get back underneath the 0-0. And guess who's back in the game? Kyle Benson into P6. And into turn 1, Benson trying to look to the outside. Forrester finally gets around the 0-0 for third. AJ Green trying to follow in tracks of his Stonks Motorsports teammate, but he'll have a fight now from the 10 of Kyle Benson. Bring in Curtis Kelly, maybe even Daniel Micho back in P8. So this is far from over, and this restart shook a lot of things up and brought a lot of guys back into the game as Lawson Peel still maintains a 2/10 of a second lead. And what a jump it was out of the 12 of Peel, and for Banks, caught him at the right time and was able to really take advantage of the hiccup by the 99, but it looks like Forster is already back in the game, setting a 31.578 last time by. Comparable with your race leaders, not the fastest out of the top 3, but he's reeling in the draft of the 88 and the turbulent air, so he is slowly but surely catching back up, trying to get his place back on in P2. 1, 2, 3, put a gap on the rest of the field as they're side by side for 5th on back. And Jesse Prees, what a run it's been so far for the driver of the 0-0, was hanging around the midfield and was in a trio by the time we had that long green flag run emerge. But now with this restart and with the most recent pit stops, he's back in the game, although Curtis Kelly will now duck to the bottom. That's for 5th. So at the start-finish line, Curtis Kelly will have the nose ahead, and he'll slide up in front of turn 1. Benson will work back down low on the 0-0. Daniel Micho trying to take charge. A wiggle there out of the 10 will bring the 25 in. Same deal for Lance Hill, who got his fast repair there on pit road. So finally, the 38 has elected to take the damage after pretty much getting it at the start of the race before the drop of the green flag on the grid. Got loose, hit the outside wall in the quad oval before turn 1. And now all of a sudden he's in 7th. So practically everybody with issues to start this race are back in it, at least with a chance to get some decent points. Micho, remember, he caused our 2nd caution tonight. Kyle Benson had been all by his lonesome running for the lead and then got into issues, hitting the outside wall in the quad oval. And Lance Hill, of course, like I mentioned, with the pre-grid struggles. And here's a nice move underneath Jesse Prees. That's for P6. And here comes Colin Forster in front of the 88 of Brandon T. Banks. So move completed for 2nd. And Forster making sure he wastes absolutely no time getting to the 12 of Lawson Peel. Here comes Forster underneath the 12 for the lead. And he won't be able to do it on the back straightaway, so the 12 will have the advantage going into turn 3. But Forrester is just letting the 12 know, hey, I'm here, and I'm willing to take the lead away. If you're going to stay slumped and stay right here, be a little more comfortable, I'm going to push you over the edge. I'm going to be as aggressive as I can. Remember, we're coming in on the last 40 laps of this race. Now 45 laps left here from the Atlanta Motor Speedway. So sure enough, if we get a long green flag run, yes, there may be another pit stop needed to get to the end. You need the track position first, and Forster trying to do that and replicate his success from just 1 week ago. So 1, 2, 3, 4 out on the racetrack. Peel, Forster, Banks, and now bring in Colin Forster's teammate, AJ Green, who's going to give a shot there to the 88 just before turn 1. But he's going to make his case known, and Forster once again will dive underneath your race leader, but to no avail out of turn 2. Banks will have the advantage here. And how about Curtis Kelly getting back at it in P5, not too far behind either. It's been a great one for the Chiquita Banana number 71. Remember, he had some troubles earlier on in the first stretch under green flag conditions where it looked like his tires had worn out. It was the same case with the 14 of Adam Alashire. And now Curtis Kelly has a chance to attack in on the top 5. And another attack for the race lead. Forster with a better run through 1 and 2 on the inside. Pia will hold up top, and it's door to door for P1. And Brandon Banks now with a chance here on the outside. It looked like the run out of turn 2 was good enough for us. So he's going to get a huge wiggle just in front of his teammate AJ Green. That's going to take them out of the conversation for some time. Third on back. But it's now Brandon Banks, the next challenger on the 12. It has not been easy whatsoever for Pio to keep the lead up.
And here Banks is really putting the pressure on him now, Kenneth. He's been on his tail. The rest of the top 5 is following suit. This is what we were talking under that caution. This has an opportunity. He's had a knack at this racetrack before, but now he's really putting it into use. And you see there through 3 and 4, had a solid run here. If he can use the draft and just try and run the line as smooth as possible and get to the outside of Peel, that could give him the race lead. And actually, caution, it looks...
There's troubles around the mid-pack. Yes, Kyle Benson in the outside wall. I think another driver involved, Kevin D'Elia, is around on the quad oval before turn 1. So you can imagine contact started from that part of the racetrack. And we have another caution as of lap 94. And this could potentially, Francisco, give these drivers a chance to come down pit road for the very last time and be secured on gas. We'll take a look at that in just a couple of moments. We'll see what happened on the basis of the caution. They were 3 wide for position. That's D'Elia on top in the 53, Kyle Benson in the middle, Craig Lounslugger on the very bottom. And 3 wide usually spells trouble at many tracks. And for D'Elia, right there, got loose, tagged the 10 just slightly. And that was enough to get them all out of whack. For the 53, he caught the worst end of it. For Benson, he struck the outside wall. So he just got put in the wrong place, wrong time. And again, hit almost the same part of the quad oval that he did under that last green flag run. So Benson, once again, with significant right front and right rear damage. It was all just a case of D'Elia getting loose. It's a staple of this Atlanta Motor Speedway racing. You're going to have it happen at least once or twice. And for D'Elia, it was happening to him at the very worst time possible.
Yeah, it's not that much damage you get from that. I mean, it doesn't look great. I don't think it's fast repair worthy, which is why I was kind of surprised when first time, especially when he was going to be in the back of the field anyways. I probably would have just saved it just in case. And it proved to be vital right there. Maybe would have used it now. I still don't think that damage is fast repair worthy, but of course that doesn't matter because Benson doesn't have the fast repair available anymore. So he's going to have to deal with that as is, and it's going to be him trying to figure out what he could do with that damaged race car and see what he could do. You see exiting pit road. Peel's going to exit with the lead. Banks is going to hold on to position. Actually, Marky Harris, strategy call here, Kenneth, that is going to probably either go for 2 tires and make up some track position. I believe he takes away second. So not sure what the call here is by the 5, and we're gonna see what if it works out.
I believe it was indeed a 2-tire call. 7.6 second stop on pit road. So indeed, 2 tires for the 5 of Mark Harris, who we haven't seen all evening long. We saw him in a slight incident out of turn 2 that didn't cause a yellow. He spent a majority of this race with the front clip torn off with the Valvoline Camaro. And now all of a sudden he's back in it with a very cheeky call at lap 96 to put him second. And like I mentioned, Francisco, before that caution came out, this pit stop, that caution came at probably an opportunistic time because these guys coming in under 40 laps to go, you are most likely secured mostly to get to the end of this race on a tank of gas. So that was a pivotal pit stop, not only for track position and see what will happen on the restart later on, but it will also be pivotal for making it to the checkered flag without a problem and without a concern on the field. Kyle Benson has spent some time on pit road. Again, he had used this fast repair previously. He is going to go a lap down here as he came out of pit road just behind the pace car and your race leaders. So it's going to be tough for Benson to get back in this game. He's going to need a caution here to get a wave around. But ultimately, a very interesting stop here at lap 97, and it could get the field to the end if we stay green.
Yeah, I think they're good even for a couple of overtime. Kenneth, the window was about 45. They pitted with just under 40, so you have a couple of green flag laps there to spare in case of overtime. And of course, if we get overtimes, there'll be caution flags associated. So I think there's no problem on the fuel front for the entire field that came in there on their pit stop. So I don't think it's a concern anymore. But right now, we'll have to see what the tire situation the five put himself in, what it does. If he's able to keep track position and, of course, keep enough of a pace to stay in the top five, if we get a caution late, might see someone try that sort of strategy here by him. But, of course, if he starts to fall through the field, I think guys will look at that and say, you know what, maybe 2 tires isn't the way to go. We got to take 4 tires while we come down pit road and see what it does for us, because it might not be important. But I think an important note here to mention is that he does restart the outside line, and we are a very typical restart of the outside line in for the repave. You saw guys just can't go with that outside lane, and we don't really see that on first times I've ever seen a restart that bad from the outside lane. It looked exactly the same as a real life counterpart. And seeing that 5 up there with worn tires on the left side of his race car, if I'm Colin Forrester, I'm looking out, because if I had it happen to me the last restart and now I'm behind the guy who's side, I would definitely just be a little bit more aware of that possibility happening.
Yeah, definitely has to be very careful. And when you look at that restart from Colin Forster and company that last time by, it just reminded me of old tire restarts at Dover, because the asphalt and the concrete at Dover is just so abrasive that you just try to get the rear tires going and it just lights up and the car does not want to go whatsoever. Hopefully it doesn't happen on behalf of Mark Harris on this restart, but anything is possible. He does have 2 tires on that car, so that means there is a side somewhere where the old rubber is still worn in on that Camaro. Pace car is down. It's a slow restart for Mark Harris. They check up on the outside lane. Now we will go green flag racing once again from Atlanta. Colin Forster almost split it 3 wide, but he thought better of it going into turn 1.
And Harris, he's just falling back big time. Look at everybody just with the better tires going to the inside, taking him 3 wide. I think this is an example. I think 2 tires is not going to be the way to go. That right there is your perfect example of that being the case. So scratch that off. That's not going to be something anyone.
Harris
Banks
now.
is up P2.
Oh, Harris.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. You were cutting out just a little bit there. I was about to mention Mark Harris now falling just outside of the top 10. He tucks behind the 13 of Craig Lautenslager. Most of the field single file on the very outside lane. AJ Green trying to get underneath his teammate once again in Forster, but he's going to be not successful. And what was notable there, Francisco, on the last run was how good Forster was at catching up to your race leader. He put the fight there to Lawson Peel multiple times in 1 and 2, and it gone side by side. And now with that restart, he's back in 3rd. So he's going to have to chop off the 88 one more time if he can get around the 12, and here might be the move to make it complete to the inside of the 88 in turn 1.
He's going to go to the inside, see if he makes the move work. He's going to go all turn 2. I think he's clear up of Brandon Banks, and he's going to slide up there, and indeed he does. Just takes that. So now he's clear for second. Now he's going to try to have a shot. And we've talked about Forrester, Kenneth. He needs to perform at the mile and a half. It tracks that he's supposed to beat at, and indeed it has. So far this season, mile and a half has been it. As we have a car going through the grass a little bit further back. You saw it on the onboard. They're going straight through the grass. It's CJ Munier. Misses the end of the pit lane. Stays on the apron. No spins here. We're still under the green.
Yeah, solid move by CJ to keep that car straight. And how about again, side by side for the lead. Forster to the inside of Lawson Peel into turn 3. We've seen that inside probable, but it hasn't been the best line, especially when you're going side by side for position. Forster not going to be able to clear AJ Green. Going to try to fight underneath Brandon Banks for 3rd, but we're still side by side for P1 into turn 1.
And Colin Forster trying to take the top spot away. These two, of course, were some of the favorites in last season's race. Forster in the championship battle, and he's going to take the lead away from Lawson Peel on the back straightaway. Peel seeing if he can retaliate. In looking at the inside, backs up just a little bit. He's going to get to that white line and see if he can get a run here on Forster. He's going to do so. You see back bumper of Forster. He's going to get right to him. He's going to give him. He's looking to the inside, seeing if he can go back to the bottom and try to make the move as AJ Green almost taps the outside wall, but we're side.
Things are getting sketchy. Third on back, but the battle for the race lead, AJ Green is turned up into the outside wall. Daniel Micho is involved. Austin Reedy's in it. Jesse Prees, Kyle Benson, Lance Hill. It's the big one at Atlanta out of turn 2. And it all started with your defending champion, AJ Green. I'm not sure whether he had help or whether he had overcorrected coming out of the corner, but he went hard into the outside safer barrier and brought everybody with him.
That looks so similar to the big one. Kenneth, that happened on this one started in turn 2 and it ended right there. Just some aggressive racing going on behind the leaders, and he got into the wall there entering turn 1. He's gonna get loose there on the outside of Kelly. Kelly drifts up just a little bit, but hard into the outside wall. Him shall go. Lounslogger nowhere to go. And then the whole track gets blocked, and guys are coming in here full throttle. I mean, they do kind of see the wreck going. They just don't slow down in time, and they just drive right into them. And of course, it's going to hurt their race. You see right there, he gets loose just as Kelly moves up at the same time. Nothing that either driver could do there, considering both were going on at the same time. And then here comes the rest of the field piling on in, looking very similar to last season's wreck, Kenneth. If you of the wreck in turn 3, we had a couple cars go around, and then about 2 or 3 seconds later, you had more cars just piling on in.
Yep, I was about to say that, reminiscent of last season's Cup event, where we had one car go around, and it was practically a 2-car incident, and then everybody just piled on through. It made it 7, 8 cars, or maybe even more, that went around and had significant damage. And unfortunately for a lot of these guys, they had used their faster pair, Austin Reedy being one of them, Kyle Benson also being another. So it is going to eliminate a good chunk of the field. Danny Micho also got his faster pair recently. Remember his crash out of turn 2 to bring us under caution earlier on in tonight's event. He had already whipped up his faster pair to get back underway. And there he is, without a front clip, without a hood, and also without a rear clip either on the 25 for the sandwich sticker Chevrolet Camaro that barely looks noticeable at this point with the amount of damage on it. So it's going to take a lot of guys out of this race. But it was a great battle between Colin Forrester and Lawson Peel going side by side for the lead. Forrester with that clearance out of turn 2 is going to hold the discretion of the next restart. But obviously you're going to have less competition behind, as there's a bunch of drivers coming in on pit road, including Michel, Eric Schaefer, who's a lap car, Cody Kinsey, who got damage off of that incident, AJ Green, of course. He still had his faster pair, so he's the one that just knocked it off right now. Fortunately for him, he had kept it up until the very end. And it's just a huge jump for many drivers. Look at Austin Reedy there, the amount of damage on his car. Kevin D'Elia has been knocked out of this race, has put his car behind the pit wall. There's Kyle Benson, Nicholas Vizzuti. It just shows you, Francisco, the amount of cars that got collected in that and the amount of heavy hitters that are now not going to have a factor in tonight's Atlanta race.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, the attrition we've had here today, Kenneth, just dwindling the car count, getting rid of some of these front runners. And look at the names it has at the front of the field. I mean, look at Cody Ivey. He's been involved in a couple of incidents and had trouble on the pace lap and the start of the race, for that matter. And now he's up in 7th place. Michael Newbraw's up to 8th. CJ Munier's had his fair share of issues all race long. He's in 9th. Jesse Prees has been top 10, but now he has a fair shot of in the top 5. Curtis Kelly still in the top 5. Brandon Banks, as we talked about all night. So, look, guys, they have some pretty good opportunities to get some good results, and a couple of them need it for that playoff opportunity that's presented itself. You have to go looking through the field, and only really the top 11 or 12 cars are on the lead lap. Keep a clean car in this one. You're looking very frisky to try and go up there and challenge for a good result.
And you think about the names that are in this top 10 in the point standings, Curtis Kelly and Jesse Prees come to my mind first, because going into this race, standings alone without the wins for the playoffs, they are right now 8th and 9th in the standings. So that would be a huge jump up, especially with the problems from the likes of Eric Schaefer, from Lance Hill, who hasn't had the greatest race tonight, AJ Green with that recent incident.